We caught up with Congressman Paul during a busy week in Washington on Tuesday. Good afternoon, Congressman Paul. Welcome back to NORML's Daily Audio Stash today.
Good to be with you.
And thank you again for taking time to speak with us today, Congressman. First, let's talk about a piece of federal legislation you're co-sponsoring, the Industrial Hemp Farming Act. This bill has bipartisan support in Congress. Why do you think hemp is a good solution for us right now?
Well, I approach this basically wanting to allow people to do what they want with their lives and with the economy. So it's a freedom issue with me, and it's senseless to prohibit the cultivation and the use of hemp. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It seems to me to be a hysterical reaction and an overreaction to the war on drugs. So I'm all for providing an economic alternative to some of the things that we need. Who knows? Some people even say that hemp can make ethanol better than corn, and here we are prohibiting it from being used. So I'm for the market determining these things and not the government. I just assume the government just stay out of it completely.
So the biofuels issue, that's something that's made hemp farming more poignant today.
Right, and it sort of helps us, and yet, I think the narrow arguments are very, very important, and it sort of alerts people to the subject. But the larger issue is how do problems and solutions get solved? Is it with government regulation and prohibitions and subsidies? And too often in Washington, things like in energy, they're either totally subsidized and controlled by government and the special interests, or they're totally prohibited. And my view of what the government should be doing is providing a free environment for the markets to work and individuals to make their own free choices. So I think that's what we forget, and that's what I like to emphasize. But when the narrow argument of, maybe hemp is useful, maybe we could have jobs, and maybe we could, keep some jobs from going overseas, I think these are all important arguments, but to me they're secondary to freedom of choice. And
Congressman Paul, you're running for president, so let me ask, if you're in the White House, what changes could be in store at the DEA and the ONDCP? Would there be pressure from you in the Oval Office on the DEA to stop raids in California on medical marijuana dispensaries?
Yeah, and I think you'd have proper authority to do that. You direct the Justice Department on what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing, and I don't subscribe to the overriding of state laws by the federal government, where if the federal government or a directive or a regulation or a Congress or a court rules and they make a mistake, it's just so overwhelming. So I think as president, I would just not prosecute. I would recognize and defend it under the 9th and the 10th Amendment, that this is not permissible by the president to do this. And likewise on some of these laws, the laws I wouldn't sign into effect, and when it's a clear-cut opportunity, they should be challenged in court and work to get them thrown out, in the best manner possible.
And Congressman, in regards to medical marijuana, we've seen a tremendous amount of science published on the topic. Would you, as president, have research done on medical marijuana?
Well, I wouldn't use taxpayers' money to do any research. I would just get the government out of the way and let people do what they want, and the medical profession should do the research necessary. And I think a lot would have been done by now if we'd have just gotten out of the way. But the prohibition is the worst part. But I don't think government studies are necessary. I think that enough people already know of the benefits, and people should be allowed to make their own choices. If they make a mistake, they suffer the consequences. But it would be a tremendous incentive if they didn't think the government was there to tell them what is bad and what is good. If it's the government to do the research and say, oh, this is good, it's the same principle as the government making a decision and saying it's bad. So I don't particularly want them to do either one. I want the burden of decision making be placed on the individuals and the communities and the parents and if anything, local government at the very most. But I don't think that studies to find out what's good or bad about any substance is a proper role for the federal government.
And Congressman Paul, as someone who's been an outspoken critic of the drug war and our current foreign policy decisions, how much does domestic prohibition play into our foreign policy, do you think? when it comes to military resources and the like?
Well, I think it's significant, but it's probably a mixed bag. It requires a military operation, a lot of expenditures. Just think of what's going on in Colombia. We're talking about billions of dollars. But quite frankly, I think that is probably a cop-out. I don't think that's the real issue, though that's what they claim. I think that's the excuse for going in. The drug war is the excuse to go into certain areas for the benefit of maybe oil interests or something else. Same way in Afghanistan. We're over there to get rid of the Taliban and stop these drugs from coming, but maybe it could have more to do with a gas pipeline going through Afghanistan than anything else. But I think they're very much aware of how much money is in the drug war, how much is involved, and I think many governments, including our own CIA, see some benefit to raise money outside the normal circles. And I think the Iran-Contra affair indicated pretty strongly that our CIA was involved in actually using some of this money, drug money. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do this deliberately. But the massive number of people in the country, the voters and the politicians here in Washington, all are easily intimidated, and they easily believe, well, it's the government's responsibility. We have to protect children. We have to protect people against bad things. And they vote that way because they think they're helping, or even if they are convinced it's not helping, they're convinced they better because they think that they can't possibly ever be elected or reelected to government if they tell the truth about the drug war. And yet that's one thing that I've been able to overcome, at least up until now. In my district, they know where I stand, and I've always been very clear that the drug war is a lot worse than the drugs themselves. Yet I've also had to convince the people in my district that I don't like drugs. I don't like illegal drugs. I don't even like most legal drugs, and point out that governments too often, and doctors, the medical profession, encourages overuse of prescription drugs, and here we now have our federal government doing mandatory mental health